3, 2, 1.
Am I live?
You yes.
Oh, 3, 2, 1. Why do you do that to me?
Good. Fun.
Hi, everybody. I hope everybody's having a great Saturday. It is a beautiful day here today. Sun is shining. It's usually is after a storm here, so we got a little bit of snow on Thursday and Friday. So when I say a little bit, we got maybe 4 inches, maybe. Today we're going to be painting a piece for Valentine's Day, and I know it's just one day out of the year, but I love Valentine's Day. It's always fun. So we're going to be doing this one, but I've had so many questions and so many requests in the last little while for a really back to basics project. So that's why I put this one together. So we're going to start right from scratch on this one and work all the way through and cover a few of the basics. I know for a lot of us that have been painting for a long time, we forget some of these things. And so I thought this would be a fun way to incorporate all of those basic techniques and a few tips and tricks and also create something pretty for Valentine's Day. So we're going to be working on Be My Honey. I like this one. It's pretty, it's delicate, and the surface is fun. As far as the surface is concerned, it's one of these. It's this great little heart, and the surface comes with 2 little extras. It comes with the 2 heart pins. So there's the blanks for those as well. So I did put these on sale this week. So they are up on the website. We reduced the price for those. Plus we have a great little coupon code up on the website too, Valentine25. So if you're shopping on the site, don't forget to use that. And before we get started, I do have a few thank yous. I did get some happy mail this week. I love happy mail. And I know with the Canada Post strike, a lot of stuff was delayed. And but I don't want to miss out on saying my thank yous. So I got 3 cards this week that were very sweet. Birthday cards. I got one from my girl, Linda. Thank you very much. I got a beautiful Christmas card. This one. And this one is from Elke. Beautiful Christmas card. Thank you very much. And this sweet little birthday card. How cute is this? You know I love bees. This one says Happy Bee Day. And this one is just adorable. One of my favorite things. Bees and anything pattern bee. And this was from Lori Skiffington. Thank you so much. I love cards and I have a tendency to keep them. I have a lot of cards. So I have a tendency to keep them because I'm sentimental that way. And I got a goodie box. I had ordered some stencils for the website from my girl Sandy. And when I opened up the box, not only did I have stencils, but she sent me some sweet little care for you things. So there's a wonderful honey hand cream and a lip balm that says, may you be proud of the work you do, the person you are, and the difference you make. I love my girl Sandy. And then she sent me this. This is freaking awesome. This is mold, a bee mold. So I have to figure out what I'm going to do with this because it's just so pretty and it has so much potential. I'm going to get into trouble with this. I just know it. So we have that. And then, of course, she knows how I feel about bugs and butterflies. And Sandy has a laser all her own. So she made me a bunch of butterflies. So don't be surprised if they turn up on something. I'm just saying. So beautiful butterflies. So Sandy, thank you so much for my goodies. I do appreciate it and you. So what else is new? Anything new with you? Yes, you with the beard. Is there anybody else in here?
Nope.
No? Oh, good. Oh, he's busy staring at the computer. So if you guys are ready to get started on Be My Honey, so am I. Press the button. This is such a fun piece. Kathy Ryan. I'm lucky to remember my name, so I'm always glad for a few of things. Oh, that makes 2 of us. If anyone mentions to you, they will help you organize, clean out your stack of surfaces and supplies, leave home. I'm going on 3 weeks now. My helper left Oh, no. Yes, it is hard, Judy. Uh, oh, goodness. Everybody's here today. Deanna Swindlehurst. How you doing with all the snow out there?
We don't have much.
No, we don't have much. We've got maybe a foot, if that. I don't even think we have that
Dog
much.
wants to go play in it right now.
Well, she always wants to play in the snow. And Sharon Klein, hello from Nova Scotia. How are things down there? And Gail Woolsey, hello, sweetheart. So this little piece is actually really, it's not a difficult piece to paint. It's just a series of layers. And that's, I think, one of the things that we forget a lot is that anytime we're painting something like this, it's just layers. So you take it one layer at a time. This one is simple. I've gone really back to basics. We've gone with a simple base coat, some basic stenciling, some basic stroke work, some basic line work, and some very basic lettering. So we're going to have a little bit of fun with this. I think it's a charming little piece. It's fun. You can hang it on your door, and it can be out all year round. You don't need to have a special occasion to do this one. So I did get Renee to zoom in as close as we can with this camera. We have it down. It's like literally at my eyebrow level. So the camera is quite low. So hopefully you can see. And I will bring it up closer to the camera if we need to. So we are ready to go. So the surface that I chose is this one. I like this Prim Heart. It's just a fun little surface. And it's an easy one to paint. So we're going to start with the base coat on this one. And the color that I chose to do it in is this one. It's Country Red. And we're going to mix that with a little bit of multi-purpose or all-purpose sealer. So I like to use the ratio 1:1. So about a teaspoon or a tablespoon of acrylic paint. And then we're going to do about the same with the all-purpose sealer. And then we're going to use a brush to mix that with. You can use a palette, but a brush will work just as well. Use a palette knife, I should say, but a brush will work just as well. So whenever I'm painting MDF, I like to base coat it this way for a couple of reasons. When I put that first coat on and I'm using an all-purpose sealer, the paint is nice and smooth, goes on really easy. But the nice thing about this is that the all-purpose sealer is going to give us a very nice, hard finish. And it's going to seal the MDF. So if you have any kind of staining or, you know, those burn marks that we see on laser cut surfaces quite often, this will help seal those in so it doesn't bleed through. And I personally have been a fan of using all-purpose sealer for a very long time. If you don't have all-purpose sealer, you can mix it with a little bit of matte varnish. We'll do the same thing. A little bit of matte medium or decoupage medium. Any one of those will work just fine. So I'm going to dry that real quick. And while we're waiting for it to dry, I'm going to say hello to a few people like Joyce Gutierrez, sorry. And Terry Zastro. Hi there. Marianne Dooling. Hello, Marianne. And Janet Mills. Hello, sweetie. And Sylvia Benedum. Decor announced their new colors for 2025. Yes, they have not just announced them. They have been officially released and have begun shipping to the distributors. So if you've placed advance orders, you can expect to see those in the next couple of weeks. They're going to start turning up. I'm waiting impatiently for mine. So I've got one coat of that Country Red and all-purpose sealer mixture. I'm going to grab my sanding sponge. And I'm going to give this just a light scuff. It doesn't need to be a really aggressive sand, but just a light sanding like that. Just to get it nice and smooth. And then I'm going to give it one more coat. And it's a light coat, doesn't need to be heavy. Now that light sanding is going to take care of any pilling or any texture that stands up when the MDF gets wet. And it will also take care of any little thin spots that you may have. And it'll give that surface a really nice finish. So I've got my second coat on there, and I'm going to dry that. And say good morning to Robin Storm. Hello. Sandy McTeer did a great job unboxing the new colors. Her video is fabulous. Absolutely fabulous. Denise Chavez, do I paint the edges? In most cases, I'll paint both sides. But I usually don't worry about the edges because I'm going to put a gold metallic pen around the edges. So, here we go. And I'll run my hand over it. And if I feel any rough areas, I will give it another light sanding. But if it's nice and smooth, it's good to go. Now, if it is a little rough, you can give it a light sanding, and then the third coat you put on will be just paint. You don't have to put any more sealer on, but this gives it a very nice smooth finish. So we're going to move from that to our stenciled background. Now the color that I'm using for this background is a little bit of cranberry wine. Love that color. It's great over reds. So I'm going to position, this is the stencil I'm using. This is Honeycomb, and it's M219. It has 3 different sizes on it. I'm going to use that middle size for this piece. I find that the bigger one is a little bit busy, and it's nearly the size of the flowers, and I want them to be a little smaller. And I avoided using the small one because it makes a very busy background. So that middle one is the usual. I saw a question. Linda Griffith, where do you get your gold pens? I use a Deco Color gold paint pen. It's my favorite. I also use one called Chrome, and it's from Molotov makes one. And the one I've been using lately is made by Let's Resin. The Let's Resin ones are a little less expensive, and you can find those on Amazon.ca as well. So just type in gold metallic paint pen, and you'll get a selection, but the one that I like the most is the Deco Color. So here we go. I've got, this is a 3/4 Dynasty Stencil Pro stencil brush. And I'm going to load my stencil brush. Let me move this down so you can see what I'm doing. I move a little bit of the paint out onto the palette, and then I swirl my stencil brush in both directions, straight up and down. And that gives me a nice distribution of color in my stencil brush. And then the application is done the same way, straight up and down, circular fashion, change directions frequently. Just like that. And then you remove the stencil, line it back up, reload if you need to, and stenciled again. And you just continue until the whole surface is covered. Circular fashion, change directions frequently. So we get this nice variation everywhere. Just position your stencil, line it up. And change directions frequently. Now, they do not need to be perfect. They do not need to be fully opaque. They don't even have to be complete. But we just want to get a nice pattern going across this background. And another good tip is to actually tape the stencil in place using a little bit of painter's tape. No, I'm not using the new colors yet. I haven't gotten them yet. But they will be here soon. Whoops, drop my brush. Oh, for the love of pearl. There we go. Here we go. And like I said, just continue until you have the whole surface covered. Now, someone asked me recently why I change directions. If you change directions frequently, it will help give you a much more uniform application of color. The other thing it helps prevent is paint bleeding under the stencil. So if you only go in one direction, paint has a tendency to collect on one side of the stencil. Whereas if you change directions, it helps redistribute that color so that you don't get any bleeding and you get a nice crisp pattern. Super easy. Where did I miss? I missed something. Oh, the little sanders. I love those little sanders. They're the best. Here we go. I love the variations. So you get some that are darker, some that are lighter. I love that look. So I'm going to dry this real quick. Good morning, Brenda Schock. Good morning, Joan. What if you were a pouncer, not a swirler? When you pounce, it has a tendency to splay the stencil brush bristles, and then they have a tendency to go underneath the stencil. So I avoid pouncing whenever possible. I've never been a big fan of pouncers. You see those applicators available online for stenciling where there was a sponge. You have very little control over how much paint actually goes into the sponge. And so you have very little control about how much actually comes out of it. And so you end up with paint everywhere, even in places you don't necessarily want it. So I am a firm believer in swirling, changing directions frequently. Not to mention, pouncing is very hard on your stencil brush. So, oh, I like this. That gives me another idea. That could make for a fun look, couldn't it? I've always been a fan of having design run out, letting it fade out a little bit. I think it just does really pretty things. There we go. Tape that down. Ta-da. Good to have you with us, Jess. Just like a children. I need advice on how to organize stencils. Oh, actually, I have a really great tip for organizing stencils. I have literally hundreds of them, so I have to be able to find what I'm looking for quickly. And I think the biggest challenge is not only finding a way to store your stencils effectively so you're easy to find, but to store them so that they're not getting damaged. We invest quite a bit into our materials, so it behooves us to look after them. So I'm going to finish stenciling this, and then I'm going to show you what I use to organize stencils. I've tried binders. Binders work well for certain things, not so well for other things. It's functional, but there are other ways to store stencils that are a little easier. So, and I've been doing this a while, so I've come up with some ways that work really well for me. And that doesn't mean that they're going to work for everybody, but they work well for me. I think a lot of it depends on how you use stencils. So there is our background. I really love this look with that. I like the variations where it's darker in places, lighter in others. Some are incomplete, some are imperfect. I love that look. That just does it for me. So I'm going to give that a minute to dry, and I'm going to grab something so I can show you. It's one of my favorite ways to organize stencils. I'm a big one for labels. So this is a card keeper. These are available at Michael's. I think they run about $20. Inside the box, they have dividers. So it's like a file system. And on each of those dividers, I label them. Ouch. So if they're collage stencils, this is how I label it. So I'll have it labeled with collage. And then I organize them accordingly. If I have stencils that are lace, then they get lace. If they're florals or borders, and then I just continue to label them accordingly. And then if they're seasonal, I do the same thing. These will hold stencils that are up to I believe it's 9 by 7. So they're a really good system. I also store, and this is the other thing, I keep all of my stencils separate. So if I have, these ones are all Cupboard Distributing or white nylon or white mylar. And my M Square stencils are all kept in their own little house. Again. And I have these... Again, they are filed according to what they are, whether they're shape makers, dots, checks, backgrounds only, whether they're seasonal, whether they're vintage, whether they're elegant, whether they're floral, etc. So for me, that's the most effective way to store anything from, say, 6 by 6 up to like a 9 by 5 or a 9 by 7. If they're small and skinny, I use these. These are check files. I love these. These are just such a great way to store stencils. It keeps them flat. They don't get damaged in here. And they're easy to get at. So I keep all of my Tim Holtz stencils in its own. So I have all of my Tim Holtz in one of these check files. I have all of my Sandy McTeer stencils in a check file. I have a selection of these tools from Chris Hoy. They have a place of their own, and I keep those with some other minis that I have. And then I have all of my minis, which I keep in a check file as well. So these are, for me, these are just a really efficient way of handling something that can really get out of hand, especially the smaller stencils. Now, larger stencils that I use for doing walls or big pieces of furniture or floors and things like that, those I keep on trouser hangers. You know the coat hangers that have the two clips that hold, that you can slide back and forth. I bought several of those, and that's how I keep all of those larger stencils together. And then I have them hanging on a bar in the storeroom. And that way they hang flat, they don't snag on each other, they're not snagging on everything else. And that, for me, and then I have a larger 12 by 12 stencils. I keep those laid flat with a piece of cardboard in between, and I put those into scrapbook paper containers. So everything is kept separate. Shower hooks work too. So stencils can be problematic, and like I said, I have oodles of them, literally hundreds of stencils, and that for me has been the best method of storing these so that they don't get damaged, and I always know where they are. And again, label them, put a name on them if they're Tim Holtz. Yeah, this just works. It's such a simple method, but it works. So we're going to, time for a snort of coffee. Everything in the studio is labeled. If it's in a drawer, it's labeled, so that I know where everything is. I don't like not knowing where everything is. Even the shelves in my cabinets are labeled, whether it's, Americana acrylics, whether it's fabric paint, etc. Everything has a home, and it goes back in the home. If it doesn't go back in the home, then I don't know where the heck it is. So that's the best way to do it. I've tried binders. I just found binders were very problematic because now you have to find a place to store the binders. One does not snort coffee. Oh, I have one cup of coffee every once in a while, and it's delicious today. Oh, Nancy, we all have that problem. Putting things back where they belong. So I'm going to take a little bit of that. Diane Hendricks. Yeah, it's working with a whole bunch of people. Click on the live in the top menu. So we're going to use a little bit of that yummy red that we used for this, for the stenciling. We're going to use that as well for the edge of our heart. So I'm using a big 1 inch or a 3/4 inch angled shader for this because I want a nice wide and very soft float. So I'm going to blend it well. Pick up the color on the tip of the brush. Let me adjust my camera here. So on the toe of the brush, that's where I put the color. And then I'm going to blend it back and forth. Now when you're blending, you walk in. Move the brush that direction in towards the dark and then walk back out so that you get nice distribution of color across the brush. And then when you're floating, use the whole chisel edge of the brush. Lay it right down on the surface so that you're moving color. If you're using a big 3/4 inch brush and you're only using the tip of it to lay down the float, then you're not using your brush to its best advantage. So whole chisel edge of the brush on the surface. Just like that. Now, I use Jo Sonja's a lot. If you struggle with floating with water, try using a little Jo Sonja's in your brush. You will have much smoother floats. Look at that. That color just lays out really nice. A little float around that corner. We're not looking for a really dark edge. We're just looking for a soft edge. And that little float at the edges just darkens it enough to make it soft. Now I'm going to draw this. That's an excellent quote, Sue. Yep, you paid for the whole brush, use it. So once you've got that nice and dry, you have a look at it, and if you want it a little bit darker, just do another layer. And I like a nice deep float at the edges, so I'm going to put one more on. And this way it's tone on tone. There's not a harsh shadow out there. It's a nice soft one. If you like it darker, like really dark, then just a little bit of soft black will work too. Is the brush I'm using the Faux Squirrel? Yes, this is a Dynasty Faux Squirrel. It's my favorite brush. I use a lot of different ones, but I always come back to my Faux Squirrel. I love them. It's a nice soft brush, holds a ton of liquid, holds a ton of paint. Gives us a nice float. There we go. Okay, I think I'm happy now. Smooth out those floats. And I'm going to dry this. I love things I can hang on my door. I have a bright red door, so I like things that I can hang on my door. And just make sure everything is good and dry before I tackle the next stage. Our next bit is to trace and transfer the line drawing on. And I have a few tips about that too. When you're happy. Well, that's good to know, Linda. I'm always happy. Well, most of the time. I shouldn't say always, but most of the time. So I'm going to position this just inside the edges. And then we're going to tape that in place in 2 spots because I don't want this to move either. So I'm going to tape it at the top of the heart and wrap it around the edge. And I'm going to tape it up there as well on the other side. There we go. Oh, Dynasty Micron. I love my Dynasty Micron. Anne McIntyre, welcome. It's chilly in Niagara. So I'm going to use a little bit of white graphite. Make sure that your graphite is right side down. And there's a great way to test that. Just use your fingernail, rub it a little bit, test. Yes, look, we got white. Now we're good to go. Now, when I'm tracing, I like to use a red gel pen. And these are the ones that I use. This is a 0.38 Uniball Signo. Right there. And the reason I like these is right here. This has a stainless steel ball and it's a 0.38, which means it's really fine. That way, I don't get really heavy, thick lines when I'm transferring. So take your time, moderate pressure. There's no reason to press hard. And I'm going to trace the lettering first. This is a simple handwritten script. I just like this one. I just think it's pretty and it works really nicely in the middle of this. Didn't want anything too heavy for this piece. It needed to look simple. So nice little handwritten script is what we're using. And then we have a bumblebee. I like the red gel pen because I can see where I've been. Especially if you're working on something elaborate and you can't tell if you've traced that or not, or if you forgot to trace it. This is a really handy little tool for that. So there's a whole bunch of vine work in this piece. I am not going to trace all of it. I'm just going to put a single line like this all the way around, because we really don't need to trace everything. There are a few little leaves. We can trace those with the stems. We're going to connect all of this anyhow at some point, so we don't need to have every single detail in. We do have a few little curly cues. Easy peasy. And then we have all of these teardrop shaped leaves. Eucalyptus. That's what I'm going with. And I did choose tear-shaped leaves for a reason. Because I'm going to show you how to stroke these in. There's a couple of techniques for doing this type of leaf, and I thought it'd be fun to show you a couple of them. There we go. So I got in some really cute things yesterday. It's been a little time. I was thinking about getting some new buttons, but everybody got buttons, so I decided to do something different. And we have a really nice keychain for you guys. So we put a keychain in all the orders going out for Valentine's Day. We also have some other fun stuff, but the keychains are really cute. And I've got my neatness doesn't count. Perfection is to be avoided at all cost. So we have some neat stuff to give away. Not to mention, we've got really cute hearts going out, little heart pin kits going out. And we have giveaways for today. I almost forgot about that. Holy smoke. Our giveaways today are courtesy of Dynasty Brush. There is a rigger. You know how I love my rigger. So there's a rigger in each of the 3 giveaways today. There is also some goodies from Tombow in there. And one of my favorite little tools is this little heart-shaped brush cleaner. And so we've put one of those in everything in the goodies. And what else is in there? Oh, we got a little free stencil for you. And then we have another free stencil. And a little pin kit, little heart-shaped pin kit. And we've got a few other little things in there. And it's all in a Valentine's-themed Create bag. So we've put it all in. Everything has a pink and red and just pretty Valentine's theme to it this week. So we have 3 of those to give away today. And all you have to do is join us in the chat, say hello, join the conversation, ask a question, like, follow, press all the buttons. That's all we ask. And at the end of today's live, Renee will put all of those names on the list, or on the wheel, I should say. And we will spin the wheel and give away some nice little prizes. Tombow gave us some beautiful brush lettering set. It's really quite nice. It's a set of 2, I can never say this word, Fudanashiko brush pens. Or Fukashiko brush pens. They're awesome. The brush cleaner, I love them, and I use them particularly for cleaning my stencil brush. This is what it looks like. It's a little heart. Perfect for Valentine's Day. So we have some of those in there. Just making sure I haven't missed anything. So, like I said, medium pressure. You don't need to press hard to do this. And then you just trace your daisies on. Don't worry about getting them absolutely perfect because we're going to be doing stroke work to create these daisies. I'm going to show you how to paint daisies using a round. So there we go. I think we have everything. I did not trace in the little hearts because I'm going to show you how to paint those in. So there we go. I think we have them all. The graphite paper that I use, this is actually from Royal Langnickel. Let me show you. Right here. This is the one I've been using. It's the Royal Langnickel. It's great for tracing and transferring. It actually erases quite easily. I was rather surprised. I used Deckwart used to make their graphite paper, but they don't anymore. So I had to find a replacement. And this one actually works quite well. So I've been rather happy with that one. I use a lot of white. I do use the gray, but I do use a lot of white. We're talking about winter and it's going to be 85 degrees today. Yeah, no, we're still like in the minuses here. So I have a quick look just to check and see. I think everything is there. So we have line drawings on. Now, the first brush I'm going to use for this is a liner, and I'm going to use a 5/0 extra long detail liner. And if you're wondering what that looks like, it's a Dynasty Micron. That's not it. This is the 0 liner, but it'll work. Where is my extra long detail liner? There it is. Here we go. Dynasty 5/0 extra long detail liner. Love these brushes, and I have not been able to kill this one. I've tried. You can tell by looking at it I've tried, but oops. But yep. So a 5/0 extra long detail liner is what I'm going to be using. I do have several of them. I have a 10/0 as well. But so there's our liner, and the colors we're going to use are Margarita. And I've got a little bit of lush green. And I've got a little bit of warm white. So we're going to be thinning out this paint quite drastically. And we're going to start with all of that vine work in the background. So I'm going to get my liner good and wet. Little bit of lush green, which is that darker value green. I'm going to thin it out a little bit, and then I'm going to, once my brush is loaded up, I'm going to grab a little bit of Margarita. And this is how I do this line work. Now, when you're working on things that need to be very loose, bring your hand back up the brush a little bit. Not down here nice and tight, because we're not drawing it on. You're going to hold it back here, and you're going to use just the tip of the brush and let it run out. Just like that. So we're not using a ton of pressure and we're not using a ton of paint, but we're just going to put a scribbly line like that all the way around the edge. Nice and loose. Then you're going to pick up a little more of that margarita and lots of Joe Sonia. And you're going to go back and forth so that it twists around that first line. Just like that. So that you get sort of that entwined appearance. I like that sort of figure eight, almost a figure eight look. And just let them intertwine. And then I take a little bit of warm white and add it to that margarita. We just want to make it a little bit lighter. I can't zoom out, I'm sorry. And we're going to intertwine again. So you're going to end up with a series of little vines intertwining with each other, just like that. Keep them fairly tight. We don't want it too loose. And let all of those vines intertwine with each other. And I like the fact that the more layers you do, the more vivid they become. The liner I'm using is a 5/0 extra long detail liner. There we go. Okay, I think I've got enough busy going. So it's not going to be a super dark border. It's going to be a little brighter all the way around and very loose, as you can see. So we have a few little leaves in here. And I'm going to use some lush green. And I'm using a 0 rigger for this. And we're going to paint in those little leaves. They're just little, simple little leaves, nothing fancy. Don't worry about getting them absolutely perfect. It doesn't matter. So this is just little filler leaves. And I'm base coating them in with a little bit of lush green. And keep them simple. Don't overthink them. They don't need to be too elaborate or too fancy. I absolutely love me a tendril. I like fine little details. But those fine little details don't have to be all that fussy. So I've got pretty little leaves. See, they're little tiny leaves. There's nothing elaborate about them. Hi to all the Lindas watching today. Dorothy Holgate, I make it look easy. I'm such a stiff painter. I only wish I could do that vine like you do. Dorothy, here's the trick. We have a tendency to hold this brush down here and draw with the brush. And if you hold the brush back here, middle to the back, and just let the tip of the brush touch the surface, it's so much simpler. And you get that more happenstance type vine. It gives you a much more relaxed looking vine than if you try to draw it in. Can we get them in sets? They don't actually come in sets, but you can buy them in a variety of sizes, from a really small rigger, like a 10-aught, all the way up to a number 8. You can get quite a large rigger. And the brush guys have them. If you go to the brush guys at thebrushguys.com, and then you can use the coupon code Tracy M, and it'll give you a discount. Dick Blick also carries Dynasty Faux Squirrel. You can find them there. And Maureen Baker also stocks Dynasty Faux Squirrel. You can find them there as well. Yeah, hold the brush straight up and down. If you need to stabilize it, use the tip of your finger to balance you. So like this, and then but hold that brush back here further. You will find even making little vines and tendrils is so much simpler if you're just tickling the surface with it by holding that brush straight up and down and just touch the surface. You'll be able to do much smoother line work for this type of application. It just takes a little practice getting used to just trusting the brush to do the thing. And just lightly touch the surface. Make sure your paint's nice and thin and you'll be able to do it. Hold that brush back here instead of down here. Hold it back here. So we've got all those little leaves in, got all those vines and tendrils in. So now we're going to start putting in these, which is that eucalyptus. And the color I chose for that is a little bit of desert cactus. I love this color. Desert cactus, it's a slightly grayed out green. It has a nice blue undertone to it. It's a cool green. I really like this one, which is why I chose this color to shade it with. This is Mystic Teal. I love this. So there's 2 ways you can do this leaf. I'm going to be using a number 5 round. This is a Dynasty Black Gold, number 5 round. Give it a good soak. You want the brush to be nice and wet. Are you painting along, Anne? It does work great, doesn't it? If the paint runs out, you need a little more medium or a little more water. The brush will hold, surprisingly will hold a ton of paint, but it needs to be able to flow off the brush. I'm going to show you something. I know I'm gabbing and I'm going to get distracted, but this is all about the basics today. So I'm going to grab a piece of paper. This is quite literally just copy paper. I wanted to show you the difference. Let's choose a red. Nope, I'm going to use this. I have to put some teal on my palette anyway. So this is Mystic Teal, which is pretty green. I'm going to thin some out with just water. Just water. It needs to be inky. So don't be afraid to put some water in it. So this is just water. And I've got a fair amount. So watch what I'm able to do. If I hold this brush back here, it starts to run out fairly quickly. So I'm going to rinse this out, and I'm going to pick up a little of Mystic Teal mixed with Joe Sonia. So I'm mixing it about the same consistency as with the water, but I'm using Joe Sonia's Fast Dry Glaze. Okay, you ready? Watch this. It starts to run out a lot later. So that Fast Dry Glaze helps maintain the color. Look at the difference. This is lighter, this is darker. So it maintains the integrity of the pigmentation. It doesn't separate it from the body of the paint. So you get a much darker color. Color stays richer, but it also acts like a flow medium. So it lets the color come off the brush a bit more controlled. So that's one of the reasons that I use that Fast Dry Glaze. because I can do things like this. And it doesn't run out of paint nearly as fast. Anytime you're working with a glazing medium, this is just awesome. So a little bit of Joe Sonia's goes a long way. So I'm going to use that number 5 round. A little bit of Joe Sonia's in the brush. And pick up some paint. Now, there's a difference between having paint on a brush and having paint in a brush. So having it in a brush means the brush is full, but look at the brush. So it's got a nice fat belly and it's full of paint, as opposed to this. This is having paint on the brush. So you need paint in the brush. Now we're going to start with that number 5 round. I'm going to push the brush and then pull up until it releases. So we're creating that teardrop. Comme ça. Of course, I picked up a round brush that doesn't want to work today. Or maybe it's just me. Who knows? So it's essentially just a fat comma stroke. A short, fat comma stroke. Whoops. Nope. There we go. Oh my goodness, I cannot do this today. There we go. Oh my stars. I need a different brush. That one is not working today. Nope. Okay, I got a brand new one. You ever have one of those days? I seem to be having a lot of them lately. Okay, I've got a brand new round brush. Maybe this one will work better. Oh yes, much better. Good Lord. I couldn't paint my way out of a paper bag some days. There, that's much better. So I'm just using, yeah, see, I think it's time to retire that other round brush. It did not want to make a comma stroke. And I need it to make comma strokes today because that's what we're doing. Much better. Okay, now I feel better. So there's all of our background leaves, all of those leaves that are tucked in behind our daisies. So a comma stroke is done with a round brush, loaded up, and then you press the brush to the surface, pull back towards you, and then release the pressure so that the brush comes up onto the tip. Is that on YouTube or on Where's the Bug? Sheila, have a great day. Enjoy your afternoon. Yeah, Robin, I agree. So a comma stroke is literally apply pressure, twist the brush, bring it back up onto the point slowly as you release the pressure on the brush. Comma strokes. They're a basic stroke for decorative painting and for toll painting, but it is also something that requires practice. You need to work at that. So it's not a bad idea to have, you know, a pad of paper handy and just practice strokes from time to time. Even to have a Buddha board handy. To get really nice comma strokes, you need a good round brush. And unfortunately, the one I was using is old as the hills, so I just grabbed a new one out of my bin. But it's okay, it'll do the trick for today. So I'll make sure everything is nice and dry. Hi, Lynn. Yep, practice, practice, practice. Hi, Linda Stanton. Nice to have you with us. Yes, changing directions in comma strokes when you're learning to do comma strokes is all I can do is recommend that you try them both ways. We have a tendency to go with what's comfortable. And so if you can learn to do a comma stroke in both directions, it is helpful. But it does take practice. I don't see the troll. What's for dinner tonight? I'm making a jambalaya. That's what we're having for dinner tonight. Let me see if I find our troll here. When you're learning to do comma strokes, I don't see the troll. Is he on Facebook or YouTube? Oh, I love cooking, Loretta. And I'm far from Superwoman. Oh, believe me. Maureen McNaughton brushes were fabulous. Yes, I can share the jambalaya recipe. Absolutely. I think my gumbo recipe is on my website. But I'll have to put the jambalaya recipe up. So look at that. We've got all of that background in. Oh, Vakil. I haven't seen him, or them. So we're going to start with a little bit of warm white. And I'm using that number 5 round. And I'm using warm white. And I got a little bit of Joe Sonia's in there. I like my Joe Sonia. But, what am I thinking? Hello, I got completely distracted. We have to do some shading, highlighting, and some detail work first. So, good heavens. I was all set to paint daisies, but nope, we need to do these leaves first. So, make sure that's good and dry. Now, I'm going to switch over to a 3/8 angled shader. This is a black gold. I also have them in faux squirrel. I use either or. Today I'm going to work with black gold. And we have a little bit of mystic teal. I love this color. Yes, Georgia, I'm the cook. I love to cook. My favorite place in this house after my studio is my kitchen. So a little bit of mystic teal, 3/8 angled shader. And I'm going to pick up a small amount of mystic teal on the toe of the brush. And I'm going to blend it really well. If you don't have mystic teal, you can use mermaid tail. That color will work just fine. So we're going to shade the base of each of these comma strokes right here with a nice little U-shaped float down at the base where it would join the stem. Just like that. So the shadow is going to come from about the midway point on each stroke down to the point and then back up to the midway point on the side. So a nice little U-shape, or in this case, V-shaped float. I love mermaid tail, and I love this mystic teal. How do you click on Elizabeth? Click on their little face, their little logo button, whatever you want to call it, their avatar. Click on that. When it opens up their page, there's 3 dots on the far right of the screen. Click on the 3 dots and hit block. There was one on my main page this morning that was driving me crazy. So, little V-shaped float on each one of those leaves down at the point, so that the darkest value is down on that little point at the end, like that. Just like so. So I'm teaching today, and my husband is in my kitchen because I had a 13-pound bag of lemons sitting on the counter, and he wanted to know what I needed done with them. So he took all the rind off for me, and then he juiced all the lemons, and then he went and got the 13-pound bag of oranges and did the same thing to them. And then Renee took all of the rind and put it into my dehydrator. So they've saved me a ton of work. So this afternoon, once all of my lemon rind is dry, I will grind it all. So we're almost done with these eucalyptus. Well, with the shading anyway. I like it quite dark, so if you feel that you want it a little bit darker, don't be afraid to go back in and put another float in. Like, really don't worry about that. You can come back in. If you want it darker, by all means, make it darker. It drastically changes the look of this desert cactus. I love this color. It's very versatile. Yet it's one of those colors that people kind of overlook because it's kind of bland by itself when you look at it. But once you start using other colors over top of it, it's fabulous. And it's become a favorite of mine. I use it quite often. I love it in autumnal things when you need a little cool. It's just a great bluish green that works well for a lot of different things. What will I do with the rind? I have a spice grinder, and so I grind once I have all of the rind dried, and dried to the point where it snaps when you take it out of the dehydrator, when you try to break it. It doesn't bend, it just snaps. When it's hit that point, I put it into the spice grinder and I grind it into a fine powder. And then I store that in an airtight container with a little desiccant, food-safe desiccant pad. And I use that all year round for baking. So instead of having to have waste a whole lemon to grate the rind, I have ground rind all year round. So for baking, for making scones, for making cakes, whenever I need lemon zest, that's what I use. The other thing that I like about it in a powdered form is that you get all of the flavor, but you don't get the chunks. And so it makes for really, really flavorful baking goods. And you don't waste all that rind. So I'm going to dry this, and then we're going to put a highlight on all of these leaves. Oh, limes are awesome. So I'm going to take a little bit of desert cactus on my brush, a little bit of Joe Sonia's in it, and then once it's loaded, it doesn't need to be heavy. you're going to pick up a little bit of warm white on the tip of the brush. And then you're going to blend it back and forth. Walk into it. And then we're going to add a highlight to the tips of each of these leaves. And by double loading that brush, it gives you a really smooth float. So you get a really nice highlight. Oh, key lime pie is my fave. I love key lime pie. There we go. So that's how you put your highlight on the tip of this leaf so that you don't get that harsh line where the color transfers from one. So a double load, especially if you have trouble putting highlights on or getting your floats nicely blended, having a double loaded brush is a great way to alleviate some of that. And I know for some of you this is probably old hat, but every once in a while it's a really good idea to sort of go back to the basics because we do forget after a while. The highlight is warm white. You can dehydrate in an air fryer as well. You just have to be careful you don't set the temperature too high. It also depends on your air fryer. There are some that are a little too hot. But you can also do it in your standard oven. Works really well. Just set it at the lowest possible temperature. I have 3 dehydrators. So they get a lot of use, especially during summer. But I do a lot of it all winter long. So, but I was getting low on fresh squeezed lemon juice and I was getting low on lemon rind. And Costco had a really great deal on lemons. So I bought a great big bag of lemons. I also filter my lemon juice. It'll keep much longer if you filter it. So, and I store mine in mason jars. So if you want to keep it shelf stable for a while, you can actually put it into a canner and give it a water bath for about 20 minutes or so. And it will keep shelf stable. But I filter it, so I'll put it through a sieve a couple of times to get rid of any of the solids that are in it, and then I'll put it through cheesecloth to remove the last of it. And it does make a huge difference. It has, as long as that organic material is out of it, all the pulp is out of it, it'll keep much longer. And then, I just use a basket sieve and then pour the juice through that. And it'll remove some of the solids. There's always some that remains, but it'll take the bulk of it out. And if you do that 2 or 3 times, you'll get nice crystal clear lemon juice. You can do the same thing with orange juice. Any kind of juice, actually. If you want a really nice clear juice, it's easy to filter it. And worth the effort. It will keep. Well, Charmaine, no, I don't. Well, actually, I do sleep, but just not much. So I have to do something to fill the hours. How long does it usually keep? I'll keep a bottle in the fridge for a couple of months, easily, once it's been filtered. And then if I have if I've juiced a lot of lemons, I'll put some of the filtered juice into mason jars and then give it a water bath for about 20 minutes. Keep it as hot as I can, about 170. And then it's shelf stable for a while, and it'll keep for 6 months or so in there. I prefer to use lemon juice. In the last couple of years, I've discovered there's some foods that just don't agree with me. There's certain preservatives that just don't agree with me. And then this year, discovered that I have some pretty severe allergies to additives and whatnot. So I use fresh whenever possible. What type of hydrator do I use? I have 3. I'm a firm believer you don't need to have a super expensive one. I have a large one that was a couple of $100, and it was well worth it. I dry all my herbs and whatnot in there because it doesn't heat, and I can control the temperature. I have a standard one for a variety of things, and I don't have the name with me at the top of my head, but I can find out for you. But almost any dehydrator within your budget will work just fine. Hi, Sarah Perry. Thanks for joining us. Hi, Carrie. It's sunny here too. Virginia. Oh my God, that's too funny. So I'm going back to my liner, and we're going to put a little stem on our leaves here. So I'm using a little bit of thinned mystic teal to put a stem on all of our leaves, just so that they're connected. Even if it's only a simple visual, we just want a little bit of color to connect these a little bit. So don't worry about getting it. Toot. Oh, that was funny, Virginia. So, simple little line of mystic teal to connect those leaves. Just like so. As I said, it doesn't have to be a super dark line. It just has to be something there. Hi, Norma. Oh, you're sweet. Yes, absolutely, Robin. That's the best way to do it. I started out with a simple round one I got off of Amazon. And the only reason I bought it was I wanted to try making beef jerky. And that kind of parlayed into, making fish jerky and chicken jerky. And then it parlayed into drying some of the herbs that I was growing. And just kind of got out of hand. And then I bought a larger one, which I really love because I can adjust the temperature. And then I bought one that's, 8 shelves and adjustable temperature. And it's the size of a microwave oven. It's freaking huge, but it's awesome. So we've got stems connecting all of our little leaves that we've put in. I'm going to dry this really well. And then we're going to start putting in our daisies. See, I knew I'd get there eventually. Teaching, mailing, cooking, jewelry making, tons more. I'm not the one that does the jewelry making, Lori. My daughter does that. I don't make jewelry. I paint and I cook and I do a little bit of needlework, knit, crochet, but Mary Lynn. There you go. You're multitasking, Mary Lynn. So we've actually gotten quite a bit accomplished on this piece. We've got all those little vines and tendrils, and we're going to put more in once we're finished, but we're going to start putting in these daisies. Now, I work from the back forward, so the stuff that is furthest away from you is the stuff you do first. Fish jerky? Yes. Dried salmon? Yes. I don't have a large kitchen, actually. I have a reason. Oh, I made earrings the other day. Yeah, that was not quite the same thing. Yes, fish jerky. I use a little bit of salmon, cut it very thin, and it gets marinated in maple syrup and some salt and a little bit of soy sauce. And it sits overnight in that and quite pressed, and then it gets dehydrated. Yeah, the smaller leaves will. We're just not there yet. The smaller leaves will. Dried all kinds of fruit. Apples, pears, cherries, apricot. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. If you have fruit, strawberries, bananas, and whatnot that are all coming to the end of their life cycle that you don't want to throw out, put them all, wash them, take the tops off, whatever, peel them, put them all in a Ziploc bag, throw them in the freezer. And then every time you have fruit that is coming towards the end of its life and you don't want to throw it out, again, wash it, peel it, do whatever, throw it into the Ziploc bag that you keep in the freezer. Once the bag is completely full, you take it out, and while it's thawing, you take that whole mess and put it into a blender. Throw it all in the blender. And it will make a super thick puree. And then you can take that puree and spread that out onto sheets of parchment paper, and then fill up a cookie sheet with it and put it into the oven at about 170 degrees and let it go for about 4 to 5 hours at that temperature. It will dry out and create a fruit leather, and then you can literally cut it up with kitchen shears or with a knife and store it into an airtight container, and you've got fruit leather. And it's made with 100% fresh, clean fruit. It's easy. And I throw all my bananas, the minute they get too dark to eat, I throw my bananas in the freezer and I keep them frozen until I'm ready to cook them. And then when I thaw them, or when I'm ready to use them, and then when I take out 3 bananas to make a banana loaf or banana bread, I leave them on the counter, and then I can peel them, and it literally comes out almost pureed. And then you can just throw it in and cook with it. Super easy. And that way you're not wasting any of it. There's nothing worse than wasting perfectly good food. So we're going to be working with a little bit of warm white, and we're coming back to that comma stroke thing. So a little bit of Joe Sonia's in the brush and warm white. And I love painting flowers this way because this is super simple. So I got warm white, some Joe Sonia in the brush because you want the paint creamy. You want the paint creamy. So we're going to start with this crew up here. So first petal, we're going to do all the ones in the back row. Comma stroke. Comma stroke. Comma stroke. Keep in mind how the petals bend. I need a cooking YouTube. Yeah, I don't think I have time for that. So always coming back towards the center of the flower. Just like that. Don't worry if there's brush marks. Yep. Just like that. So we've got all of those petals in the background of this daisy. And then we're going to do the same thing to each daisy. 1, 2. I use the line drawing more as a guide. It is not cut in stone. So if you don't do it exactly how the line drawing is, that's okay. Yep, no waste with fruit. I like to buy pineapple, a whole pineapple, and the one thing I've noticed is it tends to go quickly bad once it's been cut. It tends to go bad quickly, I should say, once it's been cut up. So I do the same thing. I will cut them down into bite sizes, put them into a Ziploc bag, throw them in the freezer. The brush I'm using is that number 5 round, or number 6, sorry. It's a number 6. So you can see we've just got clusters of petals. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Just like that. And each of those strokes always comes back towards the center of the flower. Warm white. I always use warm white. I rarely use titanium white. Dried pineapple is like candy. It's so good. But you can do the same thing. You make a fruit leather out of the pineapple. If you guys saw how I organized my kitchen stuff, you'd have a heart attack. My kitchen is like everything else. I have to label everything. So, look how pretty. It's already taken shape. They do make great smoothies, but they also make they're great for baking. Here we go. Hi, Lori. Lori, thank you for my card. It arrived today, or yesterday, I should say. I love the little bees. Oh, grilled pineapple is to die for. So, here we go. So, where do I keep everything in my kitchen? I have a pantry and I have a storeroom. And the pantry is off my dining room, and I have a storeroom down here next to the studio. And I keep canned goods, homemade pickles, homemade jams, and whatnot down here because it's cooler in that storeroom than it is in the rest of the house. The upstairs pantry, I store all of my dry goods. So I have pasta, rice, noodles, things like that are stored in the pantry. And I have everything in airtight containers, and everything is labeled so that I know what I have and where it is. And then in my kitchen, I have all my herbs stored in airtight containers that are about this big. I do not have spice bottles. I have everything in airtight containers, and each of them is labeled accordingly. So you guys would, yeah, you'd think I was a little OCD. A little bit. So for the center of the flower, I like to do this. I just tap a little bit of warm white in at the center of the flower. I do not worry too much about whether or not it comes all the way, if you know what I mean. I'm just stippling a little bit in. I like a little bit of white to support the next color, which is a yellow. So I don't want the yellow to turn orange because of the red background. Jessica, I totally agree. I absolutely love an organized pantry. I can't stand not knowing what I have. My studio is almost the entire lower level of my house. And then I have a storeroom off of the studio that I use to store some goods, but I also have shelving in there for cold goods. Yep. So I'm going to dry this really well. And it is filling up quite nicely. It's starting to look like something. And it is. It's just, this is all basic, beginner, right from the get. Nothing fancy. So there we go. This is nice and dry, I think. Now, one of the things I like about doing basic stroke work, I love the fact that there are some brush marks in these strokes. And the reason I love that is because it creates a natural texture. You see those marks in the real flowers, in the petals. And so this helps recreate that really nicely. So, oh, Vicky, I actually have a shelf in my husband's garage. And because they don't get used daily, they, so he stores them up on top of the shelf in there. And along with my canning supplies. So it's just up and out of the way. So I'm going to use a little bit of baby duck and stipple in the center over top of that white. It's not going to be perfect. I kind of like the texture that just dabbing that color in creates. Just like that. Super easy. Always fascinates me how quickly these pieces come together. So just a little bit of yellow just to fill in that center. And look at how quickly those flowers are coming together. Okay. Looking pretty good. I'm pretty pleased. So we're going to establish a little bit of depth on these daisies. I don't have the new colors yet. I'm waiting impatiently. So a little bit of Bahama blue and a little bit of Joe Sonia's, and we're going to float a nice little shadow onto our petals. And this is where it's going, in here, right up against the yellow, right over top of any red that's showing. It's okay. We're just putting a nice little float of Bahama blue, and it should come about 1/3 of the way up the petal. So this little bit of blue is what's going to give this flower its depth. So right up against the yellow, and it comes about 1/3 of the way up the petal. It's a subtle float. And it also takes care of some of that, where the strokes didn't quite come all the way into the center. You get little flaws and whoopsies and whatnot. That's okay. These will take care of it. I love it. And that little bit of blue just gives our daisies a little coolness. Sort of balances out all of those warmer colors that we're seeing, all of those reds and bright yellow greens and things like that. Oh, Gail, go ahead and enlarge it by 100% easily. Just means the strokes will be bigger, that's all. Switch to bigger brushes. And you're good. I think it'd be great on a larger surface. Now, if you want to, you can take a little bit of that blue and separate some of the petals if you feel it needs it. So there we go. We got a little bit of Bahama blue back there. And I'm going to grab a bottle of asphaltum. You really didn't think we were going to paint this whole piece without asphaltum, did you? I had to go get a new bottle. So a little bit of asphaltum. And when I say heavily thinned, I'm using a tiny bit of asphaltum on my brush. And then I'm going to blend it out really well. It's heavily thinned. I don't want this color dark. And then I'm going to put a float of that heavily thinned asphaltum over top of that Bahama blue. That little bit of asphaltum is just going to tone the blue a little, but it's going to give us a slightly deeper shadow. And when you see what comes next, you'll understand why. That little deeper shadow back there is going to make all of those petals that we put in the front stand right up. So we're going to shade the center of our flower as well towards the front. So a little bit of tea berry. Love this color. This is one of the new colors that came out last year that very quickly became a favorite of mine. So I'm going to use a little bit of tea berry, blend it out well on the palette, and we're going to float the front right here along this line on the yellow. And this is going to make those pretty little daisies very vibrant. So this is the shadow at the front of our daisies. This little bit of heat just keeps these daisies from looking bland. I love that little punch of heat. Float, float, float. Now, if you go to the free educational downloads section on my website, just if you're on my website, go to the top menu and click on more and then click on free educational material. Click that. You will find a stroke guide that shows you the basic strokes for decorative painting, and it is free download, so you can go and get that anytime you choose. There's lots of information in there. So let this dry. And that little bit of tea berry sure makes those flowers pop, doesn't it? So that's nice and dry. So I'm going to take a little float of asphaltum. Again, heavily thinned. You don't want this full strength. And we're going to deepen that little float at the front of each of these flowers. And it's a simple little float. Don't overthink it. Doesn't have to be perfect. Doesn't have to be anything. Just all it does is just deepen that orangey tone that it creates. Just love what it does for the centers of those flowers. So now that we've got that center done, we've done that background shading, we're going to come back to our round brush and pick up a little more warm whites. Got to have a little bit of Joe Sonia's in there. A little bit of warm white. And we're going to put a couple of strokes in to finish these off. So there we have one finished daisy. Two finished daisies. I love a good comma stroke. I love that it makes these daisies look complete. So I'm going to dry this. Then we're going to finish off the centers of these flowers. How pretty are they? And we're going to use just some little dip dots to finish these off. And we're going to use a black gel pen. I love my black gel pen. You can do such fun things with a gel pen. So I'm going to take my extra long detail liner, and we've got a little bit of asphaltum. If you have lamp black, you can use that, but I'm going to use asphaltum because it's on the palette. And along the bottom, in the shaded section at the front of the flower, I'm just going to put a few little dip dots. And I'm going to let them go over top of the petals, just a little, so that they're not all in one location. I don't like them when they're just restricted to one location. So I let a few of them come out over top of the petals. We're not using a ton of them, just a few scattered little dots. You want to still see that orange, that lovely orange that we put in there, that tea berry. And then coming out past the edges of the flower or out onto the petals. See that? It just keeps everything nice and open. And then I'm going to do the same thing with a little bit of warm white on the highlight side. Again, don't want to bury it all, but we want to keep it nice and loose and make sure some of those little dip dots come out past the center. And it makes the centers airy and light. And it doesn't disguise the center. It's still a highlight and the shading, and you still have that punch of tea berry in there. And it just keeps the centers looking nice and light. Look at that. And a little bit fuzzy. I kind of like the fuzzy thing. So I'm going to dry that. Andrea, I'm with you. I absolutely love daisies. I think it's probably my favorite flower. Overcrowd the dots. Limit yourself to 6. Start with 6 and make them tiny. I've always found that if I go, okay, well, I'll just do 6 or 7, and then I could add 1 or 2 more until I'm happy. But if you limit them and keep them tiny, it always works. Here's Miss Janet. Hello, sweetie. Oh, Cabrera daisies are so pretty. So, looking pretty good. I'm pretty pleased with that so far. Pretty good. So, because this is Valentine's, I'm a firm believer that we need to have a little bit of Valentine's in there. So I added, hi Maze, how you doing? Did you go outside? What? She's talkative today.
No.
What are you doing? No, you can't eat me.
No.
So there's little hearts on this. You may have noticed. I'm going to use my liner brush. You can use a rigger. You can use a teeny tiny round if you want. But I think you need a little heart. So again, we're coming back to that stroke work. So close to the vine, I'm going to make a little stroke, little comma stroke. And then I'm going to do another little comma stroke so that the two overlap. And it produces a nice little heart. So I'm going to put a few of these in because, you know, it's my party and I can do whatever I want. I just like to tuck a few of these little tiny hearts in and amongst those vines. Just makes for a pretty piece. Teeny tiny little hearts. Because it's a Valentine's piece. And they kind of look like berries. So there we go. Oh, we still got a ways.
Wait.
Yeah, we still have a bee and some lettering. So pick and choose where you want to put these delicate little hearts and pick how many you want to put in. I've got 5 in there. I think that's plenty for this piece. But as I said, you can pick and choose. If you want to put more, feel free. So delicate little tea berry hearts. They just add a little something to this. A little filler. And they're so pretty. Now, I'm going to take a little bit of warm white and put a little highlight on them. Because. Little highlight. Just a little dot of warm white. It can be a tiny little stroke or a little dot, but I think it just needs a little highlight just to bring them forward a little. Renee is feeling better. Yes, he was a little run down a couple of weeks ago. So look at that. So we have a few little details to put in. And I'm going to do that with my 3/8 angle. We're going to take a little bit of margarita, just a little, blend it out well. And remember the little green leaves that we put in, those little teardrop shaped leaves? We're going to put nice little highlight right at the point with a float of margarita right out at the tip of each of those little leaves, just to make them stand out a little bit more. So nice little point. Gonza. We don't have a ton of these little leaves in here, but we have enough that we have to make them look finished. So there we go. That little bit of margarita just makes them pop. A little bit. And I'm going to use, I have a little bit of black green. I like black green. If you don't have black green, any dark green will do just fine. So you can use a black green, you can use plantation pine, black forest green. As long as it's a darker value, it really doesn't matter. We're talking about a very small space. So I'm going to put just a little float right at the base of the leaf with a tiny amount of black green. And it's a tiny little float. Remember how we did it with the Mystic Teal? We're going to do the same thing to these little leaves. So, nice little U-shaped float at the base of the leaf. Just like so. Keep it simple. Don't overthink things. That little tiny float makes a world of difference. So now look at how these leaves just stand up and stand out. Because we've got a little shadow in there. Lovely. So I'm going to take my liner brush and a little bit of that black green. I'm going to thin that out quite a lot. And we're going to connect these little leaves to our vine using a thin stroke of that black green. And just keep going till it connects to something. It doesn't have to be perfect. But that little stroke of thinned black green will bring everything into play. So, just like that. And quite honestly, nobody is going to go back and check to make sure that those lines all connect with something that they're supposed to. If they look that closely, they need a hobby. So, I think you overthink things for us. I try to. I'm a notorious overthinker. So, I'm going to dry this, and then we're going to add a few little detailed vines and a couple of little details to these leaves. So I'm going to take a little bit of thinned warm white, put that on my palette, and I'm going to add margarita to that. Oh goodness, I made a mess of that. There we go. I want to make a brighter lime green. I'm going to add a bit more. And this is where I'm going to do some fun stuff with these little tiny leaves. I'm going to put a nifty little outline on them. I'm a fan of an outline. I like these little curlicues. Neatness doesn't count for this. It's just a little squiggly outline to these leaves. Put a little curlicue at the end of it if you must. But it's just a little outline, super fine. Whoops, a little heavy there. That's okay. All of these little details kind of fall into the vine after a while. There we go. And so, see how we've got that nifty little outline, just highlights the edges of those little leaves. So while you have that pretty little mixture, this is where you get to do these little vines and tendrils. Stand the brush up on its tip. Put in a few little vines and tendrils wherever you want them. And then we're going to paint a bumblebee. So make sure everything is good and dry. Here we go. So we have a little bumblebee down here. I'm going to use a rigger and some warm white. And we're going to paint the wings in with warm white. Just like so. I did put a couple of recipes up on my website this past week. And I've got a couple more I have to put up too, but blueberry lemon loaf and I can't remember what the other one was. I made peanut butter cookies the other day, reduced sugar peanut butter cookies. They're delish. Not super sweet, but very, very good. So I paint the fuzzy butt on my bumblebee. And we're going to dry this real quick. Oh, good. The corn chowder is really good. So that little fuzzy butt bumblebee is going to get some baby duck or sunny day or whatever yellow you have on hand. If you don't have baby duck, you can use sunny day. And I'm going to base coat his fuzzy butt with a nice yellow. Look how fun. Oh, Robin, I'm sorry Tiny fell. That's so scary. So we have a little bit of warm white on the wings. I was just not quite opaque enough. It was a little transparent. So there we go. Warm white wings. I'm going to dry that. Oh, Jess, you made my corn chowder? It is. It's very yummy. Oops. There we go. So the wings on my bumblebee are going to get shaded close to the body with a little bit of that Bahama blue. I wanted to carry colors from the flowers to the bumblebee. So we're going to use a little bit of Bahama blue close to the body so that the tips of the wings stay white. Here we go. Nancy, there's actually a pattern for an REK in this pattern. So follow the same techniques. There's a little heart pin with a daisy in there. So just like we did for the center of the flower, we're going to shade our little bumblebee, his fuzzy butt, with a little bit of tea berry. Oh, I had too much liquid in my brush. There we go. That's better. So I just shade his fuzzy little butt with a little bit of tea berry. And then we're going to use a little bit of lamp black for the thorax, for the head and chest of our bumblebee. You can use a liner or a small round or a rigger for this. And just base coat that black. And then I'm going to make his fuzzy butt even fuzzier. Just take care. So we're going to put 2 bands across this bumblebee. One right about here with little tiny strokes of lamp black. Just go edge to edge. Make them overlap so that they look a little fuzzy. We don't want a solid bar. Take care, Jess. And then we're going to put another little bit right across the bottom of the bee on the business end, the stinger end, like so. So I've got those 2 little stripes. See? Fuzzy butt bumblebee. So I'm going to dry him real quick. And then we're going to use our angled shader and a little bit of warm white. And I'm blending this out. I don't want it full strength. We're going to put a little highlight on the top of the head and then stop it halfway down. And then a little highlight on the left side with warm white. And then going to repeat that on the other side. So what it does is it forms 2 separate segments to our bee. Just like that. And then to finish the highlight, we need a little stroke of warm white on the highlight side, which is this side. So little stroke, and then with that thinned warm white, I'm going to put a few little strokes of white through the black and the yellow to give us a highlight on the highlight side of our bee, and it keeps him looking fluffy. So he doesn't look like much yet, but I'm going to dry him really quick. And I'm going to take my black gel pen and I'm going to put fuzzy around the outside of my bee. So a scribbly line on the outside of the bee and then little dots on the shaded side using that black gel pen. So it's going to make our bee look even fuzzier. And then a squiggly line all around the wings. Little details. Makes for a fun little bumblebee. Bumblebee. Don't forget to give him antennas. And then while you have the gel pen, we're going to do some finishing stuff to the petals. Few little fine strokes coming out from the bottom. Just a few little tiny fine lines. Doesn't have to be much. And then the only thing we have left to do is our lettering. So we're just going to finish off a few little details on these daisies with the black gel pen. And Renee is going to start loading names into that wheel.
I already did.
Oh, you did? When did you do that? Oh,
For my phone.
oh, for God's sake. Keep forgetting.
I'm techno savvy.
You're very techno savvy.
I can fix things.
I figured that out yesterday. I was having trouble with my computer and I troubleshooted it, couldn't figure out what the problem was. He came down here and had it fixed in 5 minutes. He's kind of handy to have around. Just saying. I have built-in tech support. That was my thought for the day the other day.
Oh.
Yeah, I would rather walk through a lion's den in bacon britches than deal with tech support over the phone. So I've got a little detail added to the center. And now I'm going to take a scribbly line around the petals. Now, you don't have to do this if you don't like, if it's not your cup of tea, don't worry about it. It's your piece, you do what you want. But I like a scribbly line around my flowers. I just find it makes the flowers stand out a little bit. Adds a nifty little detail to things.
Is he for sale?
Renee? That's against the law, I think. Although, I have to admit I've considered it. From time to time.
Is he for sale? That's a first.
Nah, I wouldn't even give you away.
That's a lie.
No, it's not. Maze is not happy. She's doing the poor me thing at the top of the stairs. I love the little details. That's squiggly lines. I love squiggly lines.
Does he travel? Used to.
Used to. Miss Maze is not happy about being shut out. She doesn't like closed doors. Especially if Renee or Dad are on the other side of it. So look at that. We have bumblebees, we have daisies, we have squiggly lines. So I'm going to dry this really well. And then I'm going to use my ultra fine Posca pen to do this lettering because it's so simple. And this is an easy font. So this is what I'm using to do the lettering for this one. Super simple. This is a white Posca pen. These are the 0.7 millimeter Posca pen. And yes, Sylvia, that is Maze. Give it a good shake. And then prime it. Just pump it up and down, straight up and down on your palette till you get a good flow of paints. And then it's just like handwriting.
It is handwriting.
Except I'm tracing over something, so.
Well, it had to be free-handed at some point.
Yeah, and it was, but. There we go. So I love these Posca pens, especially these 0.7 millimeter. These are flippin' awesome. If you're looking for a set, they're well worth it. I'll show you the set that I have. It's 8 pieces. These are 0.7 millimeter. It's like working with a Sharpie, except they're acrylic paint. And I got these ones from dickblick.com. It was a fabulous purchase. I absolutely love my Posca pens. So, I've got Be My Honey on there. I'm going to dry this real quick. What is the Valentine code? It's Valentine25. What do I do to maintain the tip to keep it working? I just wipe them off with a little bit of rubbing alcohol. Whenever they start to get a little clogged, a little gooey, I just give them a quick wipe with a little rubbing alcohol. Unfortunately, when you prime the Posca pens, just a couple of quick pumps is all you need. If you're getting a lot of paint coming out or glob of it, then it's usually because it's been over primed. So just give it a good shake, pump it a couple of times, and then give it a minute. Robin Storm, I looked at all the videos and pictures of Maze yesterday on Dot the Canine. She's beautiful.
Yeah.
She is. She's quite the puppers.
Is this our troll?
Yeah, we've had a troll on the Facebook thing. So once you have your lettering done, you might want to make this stand out a little bit. I use my gel pen and I put a fine line just to the right of each segment of the lettering, right on the edge. Ooh. Just like that. What's our troll's name again? So that little line makes the lettering stand out a little bit better. It's similar to putting a shadow in, but it just gives us a nice crisp look.
Relax, you.
Similar to floating a shadow in, but it's finer because this lettering is very fine. I love my Posca pens. So there we go. Little black gel pen does wonders. So,
Ding.
ding, ding, ding. And there we are. So nice little shadow to the right of each letter. So I'm going to dry this really well, and then we have one more thing that we want to do that I feel is very important when it comes to finishing things off very nicely. Actually, there's a couple of things. So I have a gold paint pen. This is a Deco Color Premium gold paint pen. I love these ones. I find that they run around $14 now. When I first started buying them, they were a lot less than that. But this is from Marvi Ashita. They're an American company. These ones are made in Japan. Absolutely fabulous metallic. They work really well. And this is how I finish my edges on a lot of things. So give it a good shake. Prime it. And if you pump too often, again, you're going to get more paint than you need. And then I just use the flat edge and paint the edges. I like this method. I like the distressed look it creates. I like the little bit of bling. And I think it's a Valentine's piece. It needs to have a little bit of bling. You can get metallic pens in a variety of colors: copper, silver, gold, even bronze. And if you're doing things for craft shows and sales, this is a nice way to finish the edges for those types of things. It just gives the piece a truly finished look and adds a little bit of elegance to it at the same time. This one, I'm afraid, has just about had its day. I just ordered 2 new ones because this one is just about finished. Doesn't have a whole lot left in it, unfortunately. So, finish your edges nicely. All the way around. And then I'm going to show you a little trick. If you want, it's hard to get into that little V. I know that. I just do the best I can with it. I'll show you a neat way to finish.
He's blocked.
Okay, he's blocked. Renee took care of him. So, if you want to get a little bit of that gold border to show on the front, tip your pen so that it comes half on, half off. So it's right on the corner of it. And apply a little bit of pressure. You'll get a nice little gold, thin gold border on the front of your piece. The further you tip it in, the wider that border will be. I like a slightly distressed border, so I tend not to make it too wide, but I do like a little bit. Just, oh, my pen decided it was going to vomit gold. There we go. So, a little bit of gold on there. This one has seen better days. Time for a new pen. So I'm going to dry that really well, and then we're going to spatter this with just a little bit of metallic gold paint. I like a little bit of spatter on things. I find it just... I think it just adds a little something extra to pieces. So I've got a little bit of 24 karat gold. I love this color. And I have a fugly brush here somewhere. Where's my fugly brush? There it is. Ta-da! My not so fugly brush. So we're going to use a little bit of Jo Sonja Fast Dry Glaze or water. If you don't have Jo Sonja's, you can use some water. And we're going to thin out a little bit of metallic paint for this final step. And just lightly spatter the surface with a little bit of gold. Et voila. I like a little bit of gold. Okay, that mirror says the same thing to a lot of us. She says that the mind says I'm young, but the mirror says otherwise. Hi, Maze. So, I'm going to make sure this is good and dry because I don't want to smear anything. And we're going to use my black eraser, and we're going to remove all of those graphite lines. So, and then Renee is going to get it ready. And Maze is going to behave. Maybe. So, take your black eraser and just remove any and all of those graphite lines. Once the graphite lines are gone, everything becomes softer and less busy looking. Graphite lines, getting rid of those graphite lines just makes everything look finished and clean. And oh so pretty. Now, the benefit to using that black eraser is one, it will take off the graphite lines without smearing your paint or damaging your paint, and it will not leave shiny spots or damaged areas on your finished piece. And you want the graphite lines gone so that when you varnish it, you don't have one of those moments that I had last week. When you look at it and you go, oh my God, I forgot to erase the graphite lines. Because I've done that on numerous occasions.
Can we turn the camera on, Mace?
Can we turn... Mace, come here, baby. Hi, what you doing?
Watch over the wet paint.
No, 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 you don't touch that. No, it's not Eat Mom Day. No. Hey, busy. So, there we go. Now, I hit this with 1 or 2 light coats of DecoArt matte spray just to seal everything down. And then you can varnish as usual. I liked it a little rustic, so I used a little bit of jute twine to hang this up. It kind of falls into those little vines and tendrils that we have back there. So this is such a fun little piece to paint. A great project if you want to brush up on some basics. And you can be my honey. I love this piece. It's just fun. It's simple, and there's so many fun little techniques that go into it. There it is, the Be My Honey. I love it. It's got a stencil in it, so it's got to be good.
Mace, what are you doing?
Hi, Shelby. I love the wonky heart too. That prim heart. I really like that surface. So we did put them on sale. So if you're looking for one, we do have them at a great price. You're welcome, Lorianne. I'm so glad you enjoyed it. So again, we have 3 giveaways today, all on a Valentine's theme. So we have some really fun little stuff in there. There's a fabulous set of brush lettering pens from Tombow USA. We have one of my favorite brushes, a Dynasty Faux Squirrel Rigger is in that kit. We have a little Create bag with a Valentine Day theme. So everything is either pink or red or some shade of a Valentine color, even the note. And there's stencils, and there's some goodies in there from Renee and myself. So if you are ready, Renee's going to spin the wheel. Right?
Apparently the dog wants a Sharpie.
Oh, no. Don't give her a Sharpie. So next Saturday, we're going to have some fun.
We'd love to see Maze for a moment.
Yeah. Marinella Gilberto. So as always, if your name pops up on the wheel, go over to the website at tracymoreau.net, click on the little speech bubble in the lower right-hand corner of the screen, and send us your shipping information so we can get your goodies out to you as soon as possible. Anything that is unclaimed within 2 weeks goes back in the bin.
Here's one.
Oh my goodness, Lois Ann's going to be married 49 years on Valentine's Day. Happy anniversary. Let's spin it again. There's Claudette. Hi, Claudette. Darlene Greenwood. Awesome.
Oh, it's that way. Okay.
Who else is in here? Oh my goodness.
Darlene Greenwood. Are you camera shy?
Is she camera shy? She's not shy. And the last one goes to Becky DeWeese. Congratulations, Becky. I love daisies. Daisies are, I think, one of my favorite flowers. Now, next Saturday, we're going to be painting something for spring.
Doing a space cam. Middle?
Nope, that's top down. That's the end. That's face. There we go. Next Saturday, we're going to be painting something for spring. It's called The Earth Laughs in Flowers. And it is a fun one. It's not difficult to paint. Again, we're going to be doing some basics. I love this one. I think it's pretty and it's fun. The nice part is this particular pattern has 2 line drawings in it. So we've included line drawings for a different surface. So we have the 6x10 tombstone as well as this. So we have it in 2 separate surfaces. So you're going to love this one. There's lots of fun stuff to do in it. The Earth Laughs in Flowers. So great little project. Super simple. I think everybody's pretty much had it with all the snow, especially our friends in Ontario and down south. You're looking forward to something springy. So that's what we're doing next Saturday. It's only February, and yet Robin Storm's got daffodils blooming.
Right.
So everybody have a great weekend. And if you're in the path of some of those snowstorms, I'm sorry. I'm sorry because we're not getting any. I really want some snow, lots of it. So everybody have a great weekend. Stay safe, stay well. Mwah! We love you. We'll see you again soon.
Pet your dog.
Pet your dog.